Good morning. Hey, this is the morning gathering of the Biblical Lifestyle Center in Texarkana, and we welcome you from all over the world, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining in. We'll give you a minute to get settled and get settled in, but this is a beautiful, glorious day. After a big storm takes place, which happened to us here in this region last night, it seems like the sky is bluer than ever, and the birds are singing sweeter than ever, and so we are in that process. It's a beautiful Sabbath morning here in the Texarkana, Texas, Arkansas, USA area. For those of you who are far east and you've already maybe even exited the Shabbat, we welcome you. Thank you for joining with us and sharing a little bit of a late Shabbat in that process. For all you in Australia and the Philippines and New Zealand, thank you for joining us with us, Malaysia and Indonesia. Thank you for all those our friends in Africa who are still enjoying the last bits of Shabbat, hopefully, in South Africa and in the nations north of that, Botswana. And thank you for joining us as well. For all of those in the Middle East, for those in the United Arab Emirates, for those in Israel, for all those in Europe, the nations of Europe, thank you for joining. And we bless you from Texas. We bless you in your nation, in your cities, in your farms, in your countrysides. For all those in America and in the Americas, we bless you. We thank you for joining us as well. My special friends in Colorado, I'll be joining you on Shavuot in a few weeks. I look forward to that. The Holy One willing, our friend Tony Young will be joining us for those gatherings. We'll be at Or Hayim in Golden, Colorado, near Denver, and then we'll be at the Cottonwood Canyon Fellowship there near between Colorado Springs and Denver for the Sunday gathering there. And we'll be having one session, and basically what we anticipate our session will be on restoring, reintroducing, maybe would be a better word, hope and healing into a broken, fractured, and angry world. In other words, what's wrong with our world, and what are we expected to do about it? I look forward to our sessions out there in Colorado, and I ask you to come join us if you can. We'll hopefully be able to see a different perspective, a different paradigm of what life on earth in these days is about. As opposed to being depressing and sad, the opportunities we are being provided are unbelievable. How wonderful it is that we have been provided the opportunities to be of service to this world at such a time as it needs it most. Well, as I said, Shabbat Shalom. Good Sabbath to you. A beautiful day and a beautiful life. We are being encouraged to take a journey with the Creator of the universe. Every year we take another turn around the mountain, so to speak. Every year we continue this journey. We think about the 4 seasons, but overlapping the 4 seasons that natural earth goes through. We have the 5 spiritual seasons. We have the season of Genesis, or Bereshit. Then that's followed immediately, supervening by the season of Shemot, or Exodus as it's known in English. Then we have the season of we're in now, which is the issue of Vayikra, anti-called, known in English as Leviticus. Then we have the season looming ahead of us still, the season of Bamidbar, or the desert, the wilderness, as it may be said, the book of Numbers, and all the events of the book of Numbers. And then, of course, we conclude our cycle every year with the season of Devarim, or Deuteronomy, as it's called in English from the Latin. Now, we are in the throes of the midpoint of this great journey that we take every year with the Holy One. He is taking us on an ascent, a great rising into the levels of beauty realm and holiness realm that He desires to share with us. You have been chosen. You have been selected. You have been carefully nurtured and groomed all your life. From your womb and before your mother's womb, from generations past, you have been selected to be one of those who ascends into the holiness realm, absorbs the holiness energy and power and light and wisdom and goodness, and then brings it down into the earth and interjects it into daily life and activities. We are privileged and honored to do that. And so here we are at about the midpoint. And when you think about anything that comes from a Hebrew culture, and the Torah comes from a Hebrew culture, it comes actually from a Hebrew cultural God, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, the creator of the universe. When you think about that, you understand that the center of anything, the point from which the waves or the ripples go out, that is the essence. That's the essential substance of things. Not the outer edges, not the last, not the first. What's in the middle is what's critically important. Well, here we are entering into that stage of what's in the middle. What's at the very essence of God-man relationships? What is the essence of man's purpose upon the earth, and what functions we're to fulfill? How are we supposed to interact with this creation that we are given to steward, to deal with? We are not here to suck the wind out of it, to suck the life out of it, and enjoy all the gusto we can. We are here to be agents of the creator of the universe, bringing instead his beauty, his majesty, his goodness, his wisdom, and his plan into operation in the earth in real time, in real ways. So we're at an essential point. If we want to look at the season of Parsha Shemini, which is the 26th Parsha, the 26th installment of this great series of a journey. Shemini is the 8th. On the 8th day, certain things happen. And just the thought of that should get you a little inquisitive and get your mind operating, get your spirit sort of reverberating. The 8th, on the 8th day. Well, it is very special, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. But let's just go back to the 7. If you want to understand the 8, you have to understand the 7. The 7 days, we started with creation. Everything is done by the Holy One in these paradigms of 7. And he started with 7 days of creation. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and day 7 was this great Shabbat. And of course, now we're starting over again. When you get to 8, you begin to 7, and you start over again. You start a new season. And so we're having a new season of creation. If you compare the creation story, Genesis 2, after the 7th day, which is described specifically in Genesis 2, 1 through 3. Beginning with verse 4, we begin to see what happened on the 8th day. Okay, now I'm going to tell you that the 8th day, the Holy One, is eternal, and he lives outside the realm of time. So everything that's happened since then is in the 8th day, in his perspective, in his viewpoint. We are a part of the 8th day. But at the beginning of the 8th day, something happened. The 8th day season of life began with the Holy One doing something very special with the man he had created on the 6th day. The man he created on the 6th day was like an animal. He had a nephesh, he had mind, he had will, he had emotions, he had physical form. But he lacked something. He was just like the animals. He was just like the horses and the cows and the dogs and the camels and the gnats. He had a mind, he had a will, he had emotions. But on the 8th day, the next day after the 7th day, the Holy One did something very special with mankind. He took mankind up into his face, into his presence, in some way we don't understand, and he actually breathed his own life force, his own spirit, his own breath, his own energy into the man that he had created on the 6th day, and he changed him forever. Man is forever now different than animals. We are not an animal. I know the animal rights activists hate me, and they say nasty things to me, but I'm sorry. I love you. But here's the situation. The Torah makes it very clear. Man is not an animal. Man is a being that has the infusion of the divine breath and energy and power and wisdom into him. Now, we have to do that. We have to steward that. We have to keep up with the fact that we are also living animalistic lives while we're carrying this treasure in these earthen vessels. The wisdom, the breath, the mind, the heart, the passion, the energy of the creator of the universe, the creative force of all that we know is abiding within us. But it is cluttered, hidden like precious gold in dirt, in ore, in diamonds hidden within charcoal. We are hidden in this mess down here. And now the question becomes from this point forward, how do we set it free? How do we set the spirit free? How do we begin to control, take authority over the flesh, take authority over the carbon, take authority over the animal within us, the beast that lies within, and it is actually the shelter on which our spirit man is kept. How do we elevate to where we begin to see things and live things and pursue life and perceive what's going on in the world around us through the lens of the divine mind and his eyes and his vision and his plan, as opposed to through the window of our flesh, our emotions, our thoughts, our pseudo-intellectual concepts of what we think, abstract concepts and belief systems and doctrines and theologies and ideologies and political theories. How do we get beyond the trap of our spirit man being caught up in all this fleshly stuff and elevate to the point where now we are letting the spirit man be the one who is making the journey and merely passing through the things that our flesh thought were its story? They are not its story. The Spirit is its story. So this is Parsha Shemini, and we're at that center point of Torah. If you want to elevate, if you want to get above, if you want to get some level of control over the flesh, the animal instinct, over the animal nature that you have, over the flesh, over your pseudo-intellect that goes mind over matter 100 miles an hour, makes you believe stuff and get angry about stuff and get offended about stuff and get outraged about things and get and argue over ideology and abstract concepts. If you want to get above that, then he says there is a method, there is a way, there is an app for that. And we are going to discuss that today, Holy One willing. The Holy One has a tremendous plan. We can overcome the things of the animal flesh. Parsha Shemini, the 8th, we are entering into a time when, like Adam, the Holy One is calling us to him to breathe his life force into us. But we need to let go of some stuff in order for that to take its full effect. The theme of the whole Parsha of Sefer Vayikra is that, the book of Leviticus, as it's known in the English world, is that this great nation that the creator of the universe promised that he would bring forth from Abraham. You forget Abraham? Don't forget Abraham. Back in the season of Bereshit, of Genesis, the Holy One laid out the foundations of the great plan. And that was to talk to this man named Abraham and promise him something, and promise all men something through him. And what he promised to Abraham was that he would bring forth from Abraham many things, but a great nation, a great ethnicity, a great people, it's not really about ethnicity at all. Really, it's about the fact of who they are connected with and who their root is and what they're tied to. There would be a great nation come forth from Abraham. And that great nation would be a blessing to the world. This was good stuff. I hope you didn't miss it when we got back in the season of Genesis. He said, what I'm going to do, this is my plan. I'm going to take this man Abraham and his seed, both physical and spiritual, and I am going to make of them a great nation. And this great nation is going to be a blessing to the entire earth, to everyone. And I'm going to set that nation as the plumb line, as the dividing line between those who get blessed and those who unfortunately choose not to get blessed. And that dividing line is how they react to the presence of this great nation in their midst. But overall, despite all they may choose, all the bloodlines will be tracked forever. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make Abraham and his seed, this great nation I'm coming forth, a blessing to every family on the face of the earth. Every bloodline will be blessed. Every nation. It is not exclusive to one or another. That's why all this racial division that's going on is a bunch of craziness that we don't understand. Well, all nations are bound together under this plan that every one of our households, every one of our families, every one of our bloodlines is to be blessed through this nation of Abraham. How does the nation of Abraham arise? How does this great nation arise? Well, that's what the whole book of Exodus was about, as we've recently concluded, about how Exodus occurs and we must be called forth. We must leave behind certain ways of thinking, some concepts, some womb-like structures that keep us bound down. And we get into Parsha Vayikra, or Sefer Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, and all of a sudden, the atmosphere has changed. we realized something is happening. This is the key. What we've been waiting for all this time is really going on. And the first thing that happens is the Holy One, the end of Exodus, the Holy One has come and he has dwelt among men in the tabernacle, in the Mishkan. He is physically present. His manifest presence, his glory, his majesty, his beauty has come from heaven to earth. There's been a transplant take place. And now we have with us, abiding with us, the manifest presence of the Creator of the universe. Now, this changes everything. This heightens everything. Now, what's going to happen to us as a result of that taking place? And how do we let go of the junk that keeps us from enjoying and responding appropriately to his presence being active among us? How do we do that? So he gives us the protocols. The first thing he did was the Korbanot discourse. The Holy One spoke for 7 chapters. For 7 chapters, divine speech, divine speech, divine speech. He spoke, and it's written down for us. It's recorded for us. So every year we take this journey, and we are empowered by divine speech. And he says these things that seem to our minds don't understand them. He says, if you want to approach me, you will. You will approach me. If you want to approach me, you need to have protocols to follow. You need to understand there are boundaries and there are dangers that come with the presence of the Holy One. Many times the Holy One is referred to as something to do with fire. Some of you know the story we're going to read today, so this will make more sense to you if you know the story we're going to read today. But I want to go back further than that. How did Moshe first come to know the Holy One? Fire. The burning bush. The very edges, the fringes of the manifest power and presence of the Holy One was revealed to him in a tiny little thing, a bush. And then the voice spoke out of that fire, out of the fire. The voice speaks out of the fire. Because you see, to us, the Holy One appears like a fire. As a matter of fact, it even says at one point, he is like a consuming fire. But he's not really, that is a metaphor. That is just a picture. Because he is a divine, spiritual, unique being. He's not a fire. But he looks like a fire. He acts like a fire. And in Daniel chapter 7, when his throne and the idea of what's happening in the heavenly realm is described, it's like a river of fire. His throne is a fiery flame, and a river of fire comes forth from his presence, and we become ministers of the fire. We become able to function in this fire like the burning bush was able to survive the fire. Now, this understanding of the Holy One as fire. What do we know about fire? Because it's important that we know what we know about fire before we understand how we're going to deal with the presence of the Holy One. If you were a little child once and you saw a beautiful fire in the fireplace, you probably did the same thing I did. First time I was a little boy, toddler. I remember this, but I don't remember how old I was. I do remember what happened. The flame was so pretty. It was blue, and it was orange, and parts of it were almost white hot, and it's like, how pretty is that? It's like the most pretty flower you could possibly imagine right there in my house, in a safe place, in my living room, and it just seemed logical for me to touch it. Well, I heard my father yelling at me. I heard my mother say, no, 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 no. But it wasn't enough to stop me from, there was nothing wrong with the fire. The fire was beautiful. The fire was powerful. The fire was energy. The fire was delight and joy. But some things you just don't touch. Some things you just understand they have their place. Even in your world, you don't inject yourself into them. You give them their place and let them have their place, and you don't try to take their place in your hands. So obviously I had to pull my hand back, hurting like crazy, and back in those days they put butter on everything, and so I was a butter boy for a while, and I remember it well. The fire is beautiful. The Holy One, and the imagery of fire that we're given and the picture of what he's like fire is glorious and beautiful, but be careful. Fire carries an energy with it, a pulsing force with it, and if you do not respond to it appropriately, it doesn't mad at you. God is not mad at you. But if you respond to fire inappropriately and you get too close and you do too much to get in this way, fire is like lightning, you know. It's like last night in Texarkana, in our region, we had this maybe the most intense lightning storm and windstorm that I've seen other than the hurricanes I've lived through. Typhoons, cyclones, whatever you call them where you are. But it wasn't that, but it was this major spring storm that kept everything going. And I thought to myself, thinking about Nadab and Abihu, thinking about the story that we're reading in the Torah this week, and about the fire of the Holy One. It's like lightning, right? So I thought to myself, as the lightning was flashing all around me and the house was shaking from the thunder, and in the middle of the night, I'm thinking, I wonder what would happen if I grabbed my metal umbrella and went out the front door and stood there waving my metal umbrella in the street right now. I wonder what would happen. God wouldn't be mad at me. I wouldn't be destroyed by some malevolent force. My own abject stupidity of not understanding the power of what I was dealing with would cause an arc to take place. And what I presented would create the arc of the electricity, of the power, of the fire coming from heaven to earth. And I didn't do that. I'm here. And I'm glad to be here. I thoroughly enjoy a good storm, but I don't want to be caught up in it, so I'm not going to give it a chance to arc on me. Well, that's what obviously we're going to see happen with Nadab and Abihu. Whenever we enter this higher realm, whenever the presence of the Holy One invites us to come and comes into our world in real ways, whenever we begin to overcome and transcend the things of the flesh, the things of the appetites and the urges, the things of the pseudo-intellect and its anger and its madness about all the stuff going on in the world, the politics and the stuff that's going on in the world around us, and the personal drama that we're all dealing with, and the selfishness of this person and the selfishness of that person. Whenever we have the ability to lift up above that, there are some protocols we need to follow and certain things we need not to do if we want to be here talking to you on the next morning after it all takes place. Well, the theme of Parsha, of Sefer Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, is that there is this great nation that is going to be called forth and called to rise, and it will be like Adam on that 8th day. There will be an infusion of divine breath, a divine inspiration, of divine empowerment, of divine wisdom into this great nation on the 8th day, on the day after the 7th day, let's put it that way, because it doesn't specifically say the 8th day in Genesis chapter 2. You just have to realize it was after the 7th day. So we're going to have this infusion of power. And with the infusion of power, you don't walk up to an electric generator and stick your finger in it. I mean, this is certain things. You just learn how to respect the power of what you're dealing with. But we will be powered by it, but not powered up into it. We will not get caught into it. And the way the Holy One is going to say this, in English it's translated as this: be holy as I am holy. Now, religions have been formed about stuff like that. Institutions have been built upon that concept, and everybody thinks they know what holiness is, and most people don't like it because it makes you think you're better than other people, or you look a certain way and they don't like the way you look. And so most people think of holiness as some sort of external standard of being better, holier than thou, better than you, better than other folks. And most people have that idea. So when he says, in English, we read it as be holy as I am holy, or for I am holy, or because I am holy, or however we want to read that, then we tend to think, I don't really want any part of that, because people will think I'm trying to be better than they are. I'm super spiritual, so I'm trying to think I'm something that I'm not, because we don't have a clue what holiness is. And that modern theology has no grid to understand holiness. Holiness is what is all around the creator of the universe. It is that energy that is in his presence. Holiness is not a state. It is a force of his presence. It is an aspect of his personality. Holiness. So when he says, be ye, have holiness, make holiness, be holy, be this energy force as I am the energy force. Embrace the energy of my presence. Embrace this difference of who I am in your life because you are with me and I have this about me. If you are with me, you will have this special force. To the extent you do have this, people will recognize you as being with me. To the extent you do not have this, people will recognize you are not with me. No matter what your religion is, no matter what your institutions are, no matter what your doctrines are, no matter what your theology are, no matter what your politics are, they will recognize that whatever you think, if you don't have this pulsing energy, it's like fire. That's like lightning. That's like purifying water and wind and all the things that we know in this earth that purge and purify and elevate and change the metamorphosize things. If you don't have that, then whatever you are, you may be good little members of a different religion, but you are not mine. My people will have this energy pulsing through them. They will be able to see things from heaven down, not from earth up, or not from earth around. And that's the challenge, and that's this great people. Be holy as I am. Holy is to take on the energy of the divine presence and let it become your driving force, your motivating factor in life. We are in a great season. We are on a great journey. Fresh off the Corbino discourse, what did we learn? The discourse when he told us how to approach, how to get near this power, this energy, this presence of who he was. We learned that we have, and not only we, but every human being has these 5 places, 5 issues with our lives. And each one of them needs to be addressed. They are like 5 open wounds, and they need to be at least partially closed because they are not only leaching out our life force, and we will lose whatever energy we got from the Holy One out of those 5 holes, but the things of the flesh and the things of the world, the unclean, the profane, common things of the world are coming and getting absorbed into us through these 5 holes. And we've talked about those 5 holes a couple weeks ago. What does everybody have the same problem? And it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, what religion you are. It doesn't matter what nation you come from, what age you are, what gender you claim to be. It doesn't matter. All that says that you are a human being and you have 5 gaping holes in your soul that prevents you from being a correct steward of the holiness of God. And one of those is your will. Once the garden thing happened and we finally saw that tree and said, I'm going to look at that tree as something different than the Holy One told us. My will is I want to look at it as food. I want to look at it as something beautiful to look at. I want to look at it as something to make me wise. That's my will is operative. Your will is going to be the first deterrent to receiving and absorbing the holiness energy of God and being able to be this great nation that the Creator designed us to be, and to be the blessing that He intended us to be, and to be the plumb line that actually causes the great division. Now, Yeshua took up this theme of fire. I'm going to get back to the 5 holes in a minute. But I want you to understand the issue of Yeshua. Yeshua said this, not understood by theologians. He said, I have come to kindle a fire on the earth. It's not because he's angry. It's not because the Father's angry. It's because the whole earth needs the power of this pulsing energy to separate things again, to begin to show in true light and true energy the power, what really is different, what needs to be changed, what needs to be modified. He's going to come. He's going to really kindle a fire upon the earth. So we're off the Corbino discourse, the second hole in our soul. After we get the idea of saying, how can I surrender my will to His? How can I surrender my own selfish desires, my own attitudes, my own thought of what's right and wrong? I mean, I had a dear friend of mine send me a nice note. I was a hippie, so I have hippie friends. And his dear friend sent me a note that says, oh, Bill, always follow your heart. And I smiled and went about my business. I said, I never want to follow my heart. I'm sorry, I never want to follow my heart. My heart has led me everywhere I don't want to go. The heart is not what you follow. You follow the will of the Holy One. You follow the talk, the speech. Never follow your heart, because your heart will get you in trouble and get your world in trouble, get your family in trouble, and cause you to cease to be the blessing you were created to be, cease to be the servant and son and daughter of the King. So, not your heart. We learned that this will issue is step one. The second thing we learned in the Corbin Note Discourse is that the second thing is we have a strange view, a perverted view of material things and their importance. Whether it's just provision and what we're going to eat or what we're going to drink or what we're going to wear, to the whole issue of acquisition and competitive acquisition and wealth and what wealth is and what it means and bling and what we have this perverse, damaging way of looking at material things that our flesh fixates on. And that wound is a gaping wound that allows all sorts of uncleanness to attach to us. Oh, greed and envy and jealousy and offense because somebody else has more than we've got. We're not getting what we think we deserve. All this negativity, the uncleanness of this world comes into us through this gaping hole of perverse visions of material things. So that's the second wound, and it has to be closed. The third thing is we don't trust other people. We don't like other people. Quite frankly, we would be happy if we were the only human being on earth. Maybe one or two other people that are in our family sometimes, on certain days. But really, we're very selfish people, and it's really about we don't like them. We don't like the other people God made. We don't like Republicans. We don't like Democrats. We don't like Asians. We don't like whatever. We don't like somebody because somehow or other our mind, this is our problem. We don't like that person who offended us at a certain meeting or at a certain school we attended or at an event. We don't like that person. And this is that issue of not having shalom in all relations, not understanding the love of God for every other human being, whatever their politics, whatever their theology, and whatever their bad behavior may be, not seeing them through his eyes of love and compassion. Now that is the issue of the third hole. We have a personality, personal relationship, personal drama hole. And boy, does that ever where the uncleanness soaks in. It just absorbs into us. Anger builds up, offense, outrage. We get vindictive. We get proud. We get arrogant. We get all that stuff. That's where it all comes in. That's the third. The fourth thing is we just lose the ability to listen and follow his words of instruction, the Holy One's words of instruction. If we're going to live this higher life, if we're going to live the life of the B'nai Israel, the great nation, then the only way to do that is to attach ourselves to his directions. We can't do this by ourselves. We were never intended to. This is a joint effort. We are a collaborative effort with the creator of the universe and his instructions. If you want to go to learn a skill from a master craftsman, you need to follow his instructions. If you do not, you will not accomplish the same result he accomplishes. You will accomplish some perverse result. And so this fourth hole is the inability of us to grasp the value and quality and then to embrace and follow the will and the words of the Holy One as he has directed them to us. And then the fifth thing is to get all caught up in negative emotions, powerful negative emotions. The world makes a god out of outrage and jealousy and envy. And the world makes a god of this because our flesh is so attuned to negative emotions. And then they make a god out of guilt or shame, or they try to inflict guilt or shame on other people. And this is the idea of negative emotions. So this gaping hole, the susceptibility to getting caught up in emotion, that is the fifth hole. Okay, so we learned the holes, and we've learned there's a protocol that you follow to address each one of those to get us at least to the point where we're not leaking so bad, where we can actually have an interaction with the Holy One without it just dissipating completely as soon as it happens and carry some of the goodness with us. Well, that's what we learned in the Corbin Note Discourse. And now the problem is all we did was hear the Holy One talk about it. It's one thing to hear him speak, as our friend Jacob, called James by the English speakers, would tell you, it's not about hearing the word, it's about doing it. It's faith without works is dead, one way to put it. You can't just look at something and hear something and believe something in your mind. You have to put it into application. You have to put it into operation. And that requires boots on the ground level stuff. It requires you to be actively engaged with the words of the Holy One and actually apply them in real time with real situations and real people and get in control of your mind and your will. Get control of your emotions and subject them to the will of God and to the instructions of God about those things. To get in line of His thinking with regard to material things. Not yours, His. What they're for, what the purpose is, what your responsibility with regard to them is. This has to happen. And now we understand that we are learning this process, but it's just out right now, it's all up here. It's all in our head. We're hearing the voice, and the energy of the words is there. And so what he's done in the last session we actually had, was in Parsha Tzav, and he says, now I want to turn you into thinking in terms of how you're going to put this in operation. Not just think it, not just know it, but actually make it work. And make it work in your relationship with other people. So I'm going to give you the vision. I'm going to let you get into the head of a priest. So we did that in Parsha Tzav. We either got into the head of a priest, or a priest got into our head. And both, whatever happened, we begin to see things and see people coming through that tabernacle door with 5 holes in their soul. Not just people we disagree with philosophically or ideologically or politically. Not just people who sinned against us or our family or hurt us. Not just people who said bad things or did bad things. These are people, human beings, with 5 holes in their soul that all have the divine spark within them. We just need to activate. So we learn to see them through that process, and now it's like, okay, now that you've been able to see through the process, what if I set you apart for 7 days? We had 7 days of unleavened bread, 7 days of taking all the junk that was in your head about people and about the world and about material things and about the words of God and how you can bypass them, where there's a loophole here and a loophole there, and how much can I get by with? I mean, I always tickled. Will I go to hell if I get a tattoo? Will I go to hell if I eat pork or bacon? I'm not going to answer the question because it's not even the right question. It is an irrelevant question. Why would you even consider? What do you want, to get a pass with a C? You want a C minus and you want to pass? Or do you want to fulfill the purpose for which you were put on earth? Do you want to soar into the heavenly realm? Do you want to be the blessing to the earth that you were created to be? Or is all you're considered about, I want to skim through by the skin of my pants, by the seat of my pants and the skin of my teeth? Well, I appreciate the fact that you at least want to not go to hell. That's a good thing. Better than wanting to go to hell. But how about we actually get ourselves above that a little bit, beyond that for a few seconds, and think, how can I actually be the blessing to the earth and to the families of the earth that I was created to be? And so he sets us apart for 7 days, 7 days of cleansing, 7 days of unleavening. And last week we had this session on the feast of the Messiah, Messiah's feast, Mashiach Seudah. And the idea that all of this is pointing us to our union with the Messiah. Well, I won't have time to go over that again. I hope you go back and listen to the video if you didn't see it. It was hopefully an inspiring message to you. But now we're here, and we're coming through the 7 days of consecration of Aaron and his sons, which is a picture of all of us, of our unleavened bread every year. Every time we go through this cycle, every year we go through this cycle in this season, and we let us out a 7-day consecration unto the Holy One and His ways of thinking, His ways of approaching life. And now here we are on the 8th day. The day of starting over. And this time we don't start over in theory. This time we don't start over with a bunch of belief system. We don't start over with doctrine and theology. We start over face to face with people, with real human beings, with real challenges and real situations, with real temptations and real test of our ability to keep up here, stay up here, as opposed to getting down here in the flesh and duking it out with folks we disagree with, either verbally or physically, or with glares and stares and attitudes and Facebook posts. We get a chance to learn, are we going to be able to carry what we've just gotten and do it responsibly? And that's what our issue is. It's grand opening day at the Creator's Mishkan, his tabernacle, his abiding presence. It's grand opening. Wow, this is going to be a good show. This is your burning bush. This is your burning bush. The fire is going to come. The fire is going to come. How will you respond when the fire comes? I love the fact that we're working towards Pentecost. We're working towards Shavuot. And on Acts 2, when we talk about what happened on Pentecost, a lot of people get caught up in the sound, the rushing wind, and the wind and the breath, and the tongues. But what else did the fire was the catalyst for the whole thing. The clothing, the breaking of the tongues of fire, set over each person. And this fire is what. So this is the release of the fire, kindling of the fire upon the earth. That's where we are. So here we are. The sub-theme is, by those who would come near me, the Holy One would be speaking. This is actually from Leviticus 10:3. It's interesting. Moshe is actually quoting something that he has heard the Holy One say that's not recorded for us in Torah. But Moshe says, God said this. It's after Nadab and Abihu and their situation. God said, this is what he meant when he said, and this is a private conversation he had with Moshe. Moshe reports the private conversation. The private conversation was, in English, something like, by those who would come near me, I must be regarded as holy. And before all the people, I must be glorified. That's kind of your English translations of what that word would be. By all people who would come before me, I must be considered, regarded as holy. Again, forget your ideas of holiness. Forget your doctrinal ideas of holiness. This is the presence, the manifest presence of the energy of God and the pulses of energy and the transformative energy that comes forth from his presence. By those who would come near me, you must know what I am. You must know the power I generate. You must know the purity, but more than the purity, the energy that is pulsing out of me. You need to understand that. Before those who come near me, you need to understand I'm like that burning bush. Get on your face if you have to. Take your sandals off if you need to. But whatever you need to do to understand and appreciate the power that you're dealing with and the beauty and the majesty you're dealing with is get over yourself and don't rush up there and touch the fire, Bill Bullock, when you're 3 years old. Appreciate the beauty of the fire. He says, by those who would come near me, I must be regarded or approached as a pulsing holiness, as this bright, brilliant energy. And before all people, I must be assigned the weight, kavod, the glory, the level of impact and influence, and the weight that you need to carry. And what happens with weight? Have you ever seen them load a camel in the Middle East? When a camel has to get down on its knees and lower its head in order that you can put the weight that it's supposed to carry upon it. And it has been trained to do that. With the right instruction, the right command, the camel will lower itself down because you can't reach above and put that weight on the camel. A human being can't do it. So you have to get the camel to sit down, lay itself down as flat as it can against the earth, and allow you to put the weight and strap the weight around the camel so the camel can carry it. Well, we have to do the same thing with the weight of the presence of the Holy One. Arrogant people cannot carry the glory of the Holy One. People who will not bow themselves, people who will not submit yourself like the camel submits to the command, to bow itself and let the weight be put on. This is the idea. Before all the people, I must be assigned the weight and given an opportunity to put the weight on you the way it should be. So here we are. What the Parsha is going to consist of is, chapter 9 is consecration protocols. How do we set ourselves apart? How do we begin the process of not just thinking about it and believing good stuff, but actually engaging and closing these holes in our souls? How do we do it for ourselves and for other people? Because the priests are going to do it, Aaron and his sons, and also for all the people. They're actually going to do the stuff they've been learning about in the Korbanot discourse. And then we're going to see, what's next? A double blessing. Aaron's going to come out and he's going from the altar, from the steps of the altar. Our great priest, our great high priest, the picture of Yeshua, the Hamashiach, the priest after the line of Melchizedek. He is going to turn his attention away from this thing on the altar that was designed to help close the gaps in our soul. He's going to turn, he's going to look at us. He's going to look at you across the ages of time and across the generations. He's going to look at you into your soul. And he's going to do what the Abrahamic covenant was all about. He's going to bless you. Yivarech Adonai v'yishmarecha. Yisa Adonai panev elecha v'kuneka. Yair Adonai panev elecha v'yasim lecha. Shalom. And he is going to demonstrate to us what it means to take from the holy, to take from the beauty realm, to take from the majesty of the presence of the Creator of the universe and release it upon the earth over the real people that we have to deal with, into the real situations that we face. He is going to model blessing for us. If you don't get the joy of this is what I was born for, this is what I'm born to do, with regard to all of my relationships, with regard to every sphere of influence I've been given, I'm supposed to be doing this. Now, the words that I've said, which I actually transposed to a phrase, but I hope you didn't catch that. But anyway, the words that we're speaking, that's the issue is, am I taking what I have received in the holy realm, in the beauty realm of God, and am I, instead of letting my flesh control my conversations, instead of letting my pseudo-intellect and my belief system control what I do with you, how I behave with you, I begin to look into your soul and see the God-given potential that he put in there, the divine sparks that have been waiting for something to awaken them, waiting for the lightning to flash to cause the fire to erupt inside. Well, that's what we do. That's what our holiness mission is. That's what our blessing mission is. So he's going to give us this blessing. And if that were not enough, that's enough by itself, right? It would have been enough, as we say at Passover. It would have been enough if you'd done this. But no, he's going to, after Aaron comes down from the steps of the altar, he is going to team up with Moshe. And Moshe and he are going to walk together right in front of everybody. The whole congregation is going to be gathered in front of the tabernacle, the door of the meeting. 3 million people. Mixed multitude, men, women, children, doesn't matter. Woodcutters, it doesn't matter who's there. Water carriers, woodcutters, they're all there. They're watching through the door of this tabernacle, and supernaturally they see Aaron and Moshe together. Psalm 133. And the oil is flowing down Aaron's beard and onto his garments. And the sense of, behold how good and how pleasant it is when brethren dwell together in unity. And they're going to, I don't know if they're arm in arm or just shoulder to shoulder or what, but they're walking together, and they walk together past the water of cleansing and the bronze laver. And I presume they washed their hands, because this is what you do before you go in. You washed your feet. But then they went into the tent of meeting. Where did they go? They went into the deeper levels of the presence of the Holy One. When you go into the deeper levels of the presence of the Holy One, you're going to come out with something. And they go in, and a few minutes later they come out. And they join together. This time, put Moshe and Aaron together. Yivarech Adonai v'yishmarecha. Harmony, these two voices coming together. Men, brothers, joining together doing things that one man did a moment ago. But now, not just the high priest and the prophet and the friend and the friend of the bridegroom and the friend of the bride together. This is when we in unity begin to proclaim, Yivarech Adonai v'yishmarecha. And the blessing comes forth. We had it in mono, and here it comes in stereo. And now, if it didn't move you before, if it didn't awaken something inside of you now, this blessing coming forth from Moshe and Aaron in unity, flowing together in harmony, this should begin to awaken you. And I wish you could hear it now. I wish you could hear the sound of the brotherhood of Moshe and Aaron and Yeshua and his disciples all singing over you at this particular moment. Ivareka, Adonai v'yishmarecha, Yair Adonai panevelecha, v'kuneka, Yisa Adonai panevelecha, v'yasem lecha shalom. Now, you want to elevate? You want to overcome the things of the flesh? You want to overcome the things of your intellect and your pseudo-intellect and your belief systems and your abstract concepts and your political theories? You want to overcome that and be able to overcome it in your relations with other people? Well, get tuned to that blessing. Get tuned to that sound that comes forth from the tabernacle. So we'll have the consecration protocols. We'll have the double blessing. I love the double blessing part. And then we have the fire falling from heaven. Oh, our moment. Our burning bush moment. What happens at the burning bush moment? Do y'all remember what happens? The story is told. This is part of our great journey we go through every year. All throughout the 3 million, all throughout the camp, the men, the women, the children, the elders, and the woodcutters and the water carriers, all together, everyone. In Hebrew it says they sang. It's like the song of the sea happened again. This great song burst forth. And then they fell on their faces. That's how you respond to the release of the presence of the Holy One. Whenever you see the energy pulsing, the pulsing fire, the burning bush of the Holy One, that's how you respond. Immediately your soul erupts with praise. You sing the song of the Holy One. You sing, Ashir al-Adonai ki gehoga. I will sing unto the Holy One, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and the rider thrown into the sea. And go on and go on. Something erupts within your spirit whenever the presence of the Holy One comes in manifest power. And then you sing until you can't sing anymore, and then you fall on your face. But then there were Nadab and Abihu. I don't know where they got the idea. I mean, these guys had been in the manifest presence of the Holy One in Exodus 24. The Sapphira throne, the experience where they ate and drank in the presence of the Holy One, and they saw His majesty and His glory, and nobody died, and they didn't pick up censers, and they didn't try to make their own fire, and they didn't try to emulate what was done. That's what you do in Egypt. You try to emulate the works that somebody else does. You make blood where there was no blood out of water, and you make frogs and swamp creatures when there was, and you try to make lice out of dirt. That's what you do when you're an Egyptian. But here's Nadab and Abihu, and they know better. They should know better. They know what the instructions are. They've been right in the middle of this whole process. And everyone else has just sung the song of ecstatic praise, heavenly vocabulary, heavenly download upon the earth. You know how the song ends, right? So far, the verses we know that haven't been written. Some others haven't been written yet, but the ones we know, all the nations will hear and will glorify the Holy One. That's how the song ends that we know. And so it ends they fall on their faces. The whole nation, 3 million people except for 2. And 2 are little Bill seeing fire in the fireplace. Gold and orange and blue and pretty dancing flames. And 2, Nadab and Abihu, whatever got into them, whatever happened, I don't think they meant harm. I don't think they intended it. But you see, this is not about getting God mad at you because you sinned. This is about not understanding the power you're dealing with. And this is about carrying your umbrella out in the rainstorm and the thunderstorm with the lightning flashing all around you. And so the fire was coming forth from the Holy One. He was manifesting the river of Daniel 7 right upon the earth. And they took metal censers in their hand, and they stirred their own fire, which is called Esh Zerath, strange or foreign fire that did not come from the Holy One. There was their own, and in the process, it arced. God did not get mad at them. God did not get angry with them. God did not punish them. It arced. His power, His energy His pulsing energy arced. They were in the wrong place, the wrong time, doing the wrong thing with the wrong materials. And that power came forth like electricity when you stick your finger in a socket. And of course, the result was not pretty. It was stunning. It was extremely stunning. It said that they basically dissolved, and they were only carried out by their tunics because there was nothing left to carry out. Their cousins were called to carry their tunics out of the place. Now, you say, "Whoa, fire is beautiful," but it's also deserves respect. Deserves you to let it do what it does and not try to make your own and try to be involved and try to take control of this fire. Well, that's what, unfortunately, then, and maybe in passion, maybe in the sages of Israel are all favorable with. They said they really meant well, but they didn't follow instructions. And to the one thing that the Torah says about them, it says, "As the Holy One had not instructed." They did as the Holy One had not instructed. When you're dealing with the holy things, the energy of God, you need to use it as He instructs it. I want to take you back in this regard to the Garden of Eden again. Man has been created, and God has breathed His breath of His own essence into Adam. He's not the same guy he was in day 6. And now the Holy One has taken Adam, but he has no experience. He has never done the stuff that he's going to be asked to do. He doesn't have a book to read. He doesn't have a manual. He's taken and he's put with his a new breath in his lungs, this new spirit, eternal spirit dwelling in him. He's put into the garden that the Holy One created, eastward in Eden. A beautiful garden that He created, an ecosystem, beyond all ecosystems. This is the exquisite, the immaculate ecosystem of planet Earth right here. And Adam is put into it, and He says, "Now, Adam, it's yours. Tend it and keep it." Most of us, if we had any brains, would say, "I don't know how. I don't know anything about this stuff. If you don't help me, if you don't train me, if you don't teach me, if you don't walk with me, if you don't guide me, if you don't give me directions and now then discipline me and train me as to how to employ those directions, I'm going to fail at this miserably because I don't have any history. I don't have any expertise. This is beyond my capacities." And that's why the Holy One didn't leave him alone. That's why the Holy One was always there with him. It was something we do together. When we get an ecosystem assigned to us, when we get a sphere of influence given under our authority, given for us to impact, He always says, "I will be with you. I will be with you, guiding you and directing you. I will give you written instructions, but I will give you more than that. I will give you impetus and energy pulses that will guide and direct you." You need both. We need not just the written instructions, because they get stale after a while. And the flesh and the pseudo-intellect begin to take their operations and take their toll. That's why we need to have the continuing pulsing energy of His presence and His energy flowing into us, His holiness flowing into us. So He gave that to Adam. And this is the way it is with our new era, new world, new realm that we are called to deal with. If you think you can do this because you know some theology, or you have a relationship through religion with some aspect of theology, if that's what you think, you are destined not to be much of a blessing. People will be able to see you're not carrying that energy. You're carrying a lot of arrogance. You're carrying a lot of attitude. You're carrying a lot of form and substance, but not much substance. You're carrying a bunch of attitude, but you're not carrying the presence. But if you want to rely upon the Holy One, if you want to fall on your face, be like the camel that gets down on his knees and lets the weight be put upon him, and then carries it faithfully according to the instructions and the guidance and the leading hand of the trainer. If you want to do that, then we can see some amazing things take place. Fire will fall from heaven. Nadav and Abihu will say their goodbyes. Now, I have many friends who are atheists, and I love you. If you're watching, I hope you are. You contact me all the time, and I appreciate that. I see your comments, and I know you're always trying to get a rise out of me, and that's okay. I'm in a different I'm in a different realm, so you really won't get the rise out of me you think you're going to. But that's okay. Keep trying. Now, my atheist friends always say things like, how could you serve a God that would kill Nadab and Abihu? Or Sodom and Gomorrah, or whatever. Of course, I realize they don't understand what they're talking about. They don't understand they don't know the story. They just know a little bit and piece of the story. They add that little piece of the story, and here's the process. Now, here's the thing that I know about Nadab and Abihu. They'll never know. You hopefully will learn one day. Nadab and Abihu are just fine. They are eternal spirits. We are trapped within these physical bodies. And we kind of like them. And we sort of enjoy the time we're down here. We have a purpose for being in this physical body. But we are not. That's not who we are. And when this physical body is gone, whether it dissolves in an instant because of the fresh fire of God, or whether it dissolves gradually by virtue of disease processes or a car accident or some other situation, whatever happens to this physical body, we're not that. We are free. We are now released from the limitations of the physical body. And we are free to soar without the pull, the downward pull of that physical body. So I know, we don't like to see anyone physically go through pain or suffering. And I would say this, looking at what happened to Nadab and Abihu, I can pretty much assure you they never saw it coming. They never felt a thing. They were gone. Just like that. Their physical body was gone, just like that. Now, if that's not good enough for you, I understand. One of these days, when you encounter the majesty and the presence and the goodness of who He is, maybe it will mean something more to you in that regard. Nadab and Abihu are just fine, folks. Now, better than they were before. They're a lesson. Their bodies present an object lesson to us about how to respond to the manifest presence of the Holy One. They are not here to teach us lessons about spiritual authority. I know. That's not why they're here. They didn't disobey Aaron. They're here to teach us how to respond to the invitation of God and how not to respond to the invitation of God. And how we can be the blessing, release what Moshe and Aaron did to the earth, or whether we can just be charred remains, carried away by our tunics. That won't burn because they're holy. Nadab and Abihu are gone. And then we have this week's Parsha is highlighted. The center point of the Parsha is actually I brought you here to teach you this. And the Holy One speaks to Aaron, not to Moshe this time, or to Moshe and Aaron together. He speaks to Aaron. And he says, you are to, this is your instruction, this is your direction, this is what you do as a priest. And it's what we do as priests of the Holy One too. He's our example, we follow His example. You are to distinguish. Always distinguish. Make a dividing line. Make a havdil, a separation between the holy, the pulsing energy of the holiness of God, and the negative energy of the thoughts and the ways and the feelings and the emotions of this world. You are to know the difference. Don't think your flesh is somehow holy because it feels certain things. And don't blame the Holy Spirit for your emotions and your attitudes and your anger at other human beings. Don't blame that on the Holy Spirit. Don't blame that on holiness. That's not part of holiness. That's flesh. That's unclean. That's coal. It's common. It's profane. It's stuff you deal with every day down here on this earth. But you are made to live in another realm. Learn how to distinguish between that which is holy and that which is profane. And not just that. That's the realm. We are always at a level, at some level on a continuum. And I use a vertical analysis, a vertical axis here for my camera folks over there looking through the camera. A vertical axis. At the very top of this axis, this continuum, is the manifest presence of the Holy One. He is eminently, perfectly holy. Energy pulses from Him. Light, power, beauty, majesty, all the things that are the holiness energy package are at the top of this continuum. And then you begin to see diminishing levels. And the highest level we can reach is somewhere below where he is. But it's still closer than the bottom part of the continuum. You go down the continuum, we get to where we're maybe have some aspects, some evidences of his holiness in us, but most of us is fleshly. We still look mostly fleshly. We still look like everybody else does. But then we claim certain things. That's part of the continuum. It's down about midway. And then we get worse than that, and they can't we have something, but they can't see it. They can't see anything other than our flesh. They can't see anything other than our attitude, our beliefs about abstract concepts, and our theology, and our politics. That's all they see coming out of us because we've hidden the sparks of holiness in us. It's going down, and down the place where it's totally all we are is like the animal that Adam was before the 8th day. All we are is a bundle of will, self-will, a bundle of emotion, a bundle of brain, pseudo-intellect that thinks it knows stuff. That's all we are again, and that means that the holiness is not being evidenced at all. No one can see it. We can't feel it. There's no blessing being released to the world. There's no dividing line being set in the world between that which is of the Holy One and that which is not. That's the continuum of the kadosh, the holy, versus the kol, which is common or profane. Somewhere, each one of you this morning, or this evening, as you may be in the Philippines or Australia, everywhere we are at this particular moment, you are on some level of this continuum in your spirit and in your body, the combination of your spirit and body. I know you understand he is calling you higher on the continuum. But you need to follow the protocols and let him take you up there. Now, that's the vertical axis. He said to Aaron, he says, the other part of your calling is an essential part as well. And that's this horizontal axis. You're a vertical axis, you're a person moving either up here or down here through a world. You're moving on a Torah cycle. You're moving according to my rhythms and my patterns through the earth, and you're passing through things on the earth. You're passing by people and cities and workplaces and schools. You're passing through neighborhoods. You're passing by people, traffic. You're in all these different things. You're passing through political systems and eras of you're passing through these things, and where you are will depend on how well you handle the situation. If you're up here close to me in the level of holiness, then you'll be looking down with vision, perspective, helicopter view at the stuff you're going through. You'll be seeing politics through my eyes, not yours, because it'll kill you if you start looking at politics through your eyes. You'll be looking at interpersonal drama and interrelational challenges through my eyes rather than your eyes. You'll be seeing the potential in the people. And the problems with you won't be looking at what hurts you and what offends you, what makes you upset and what makes you offended, makes you mad, makes you wounded, hurts your feelings. You won't be looking at it that way if you're up here. But if you're down here, oh boy, you're of all people most miserable and causing everybody else around you to be most miserable as well. Then you do rant. You don't rant when you're up here, when you're at the top of the holiness continuum. You only rant when you're somewhere below the midpoint. If you're ranting, then understand you need to elevate. If you're upset and outraged and unforgiving toward any human being, then understand you are on the bottom part of this continuum, and you're dragging, and what you're doing is you're bringing toxicity into your world as opposed to bringing the blessing of God in the world. So everything we're encountering is the horizontal axis. I know I'm using some terms that are like from geometry or algebra or something, but the idea is we have a vertical axis of the holiness factor, kadosh versus kol, a continuum all the way through this process, and we have it is meeting all this other stuff which is on this continuum between the clean and the unclean. Tahor is what is the Hebrew word that is usually translated strangely as clean. And tameh is the word that's usually translated as unclean. And so we got a continuum of it too. And where we are in the holiness realm of the continuum, where we are with the holiness of God, will determine how we view what we're facing down here that's got the mixture of cleanness and uncleanness. Now, I hear people say all the time, because they're of a lot of words, but a lot of words that are mistranslated from Paul, and then one statement that was attributed to Yeshua that's in parentheses in the text, which means he didn't actually say it, and which is not in the text of the original text. But it says that, and therefore Yeshua declared all things clean, which is not in the text. It's just something that your English Bibles put in there because they wanted to put it in there. It's just completely made up, but they put it in there. And so most people have to say, well, all this stuff's irrelevant. No, it's not. To the contrary, keep looking in Paul. Look for the wording uncleanness. Look in Revelation. Look for the word uncleanness. It goes all the way through the Scripture. I don't have to go line by line with you. I could, because I got it on my PowerPoint. But every verse that you will see, way past Yeshua, way past resurrection, way past ascension, way past Holy Spirit being released on Pentecost, way past the first century, way into, well, at least into the book of Revelation, which is the very end of the first century, you're going to still be seeing this distinction between holy and profane and common, or clean and unclean. And every time you see uncleanness, you will understand what I'm talking about now. Now, this is still here. It's still real. It's not about, uncleanness is not about going to hell or going to heaven. Uncleanness is about what kind of impact you have on the world. Understanding the issues of what is tameh and what is tahor, and what are the levels of tumah, which is the forms of uncleanness. The levels. It's a continuum. Some things are more tameh than others. Dying things. What does tameh mean? Tameh means that it's in the process of destabilization, decomposition. Or it's a part of the process of destabilization, decomposition. He's going to start telling us things like certain creatures are tameh. He's going to give us 4 specific examples. He's going to say everything that doesn't part the hoof and chew the cud, that walks on the land, everything that doesn't have fins and scales, that's in the waters, everything that doesn't have jointed legs, that flies as an insect around, is tameh for you. But they have different levels of tameh. He's going to give you 4 specific examples within the natural world. He says, these 4 things I want you to make sure you understand. These are examples of what's unclean to you. The camel, the rock badger, which is a creature that crawls around the rocks in the Middle East, the ibex, the pig. I'm forgetting one more here, leaving it out. I forget what it. May I remember what the third one is? Well, there's that one as well too. We got the birds. The birds, we got certain birds. Okay, I'll just use the pig. I'm missing one. I can't remember what the 4th one is. But anyway, we could read it, find out. But you can read it for yourself. But these animals, why? Because they're part of the decomposition process. They're made by God. They have a purpose, but it's just not for you to be intimately involved with. They need to have their space. They need to do their thing. You don't need to get too close to your pigs. I'm sorry for those of you who had potbellies for your pets. You don't need to get too close to these rascals because they are doing a function that is totally different than you. And what they are, what their energy is, I hate to tell you this, but there's other creatures that you love as well that are in this list. I'm not going to go there. Let you deal with it yourself. But he says you're not to eat them and you're not to touch their nebelah. You're not to touch, in English we say carcass, but it's not just about their dead body. It's about whatever they leave behind. It's their residue. I'm not going to get too graphic with you there either, but it's also their antlers or the snake skins or whatever they leave behind. You don't get to engage with them because this is a process of decomposition and destruction, and they will tear things up. He says, why do you not put your pearls before swine? Why do you not put that which is holy before the dog? Why do you not do this? Because they're in a different realm. They're not part of the holiness realm. They are part of this uncleanness realm down here that's designed to take care of some stuff, to clean up some messes, but not to be humanly engaged with. on a very intimate basis, certainly not for ingestion, but also for touching of what they leave behind. Now, that's going to be his testimony, but he says that's just the beginning, so you know. Animals are just an example. They're real, and you need to understand what the energy the animal brings and why certain ones are just not for you to be that close to or to eat. Because what they will do is they'll suck this holiness energy out of you. If you eat them, the process of digestion will take the power and the energy right out of you. Their flesh requires more work for your body to consume. But it's worse than that. This is a lot more. What happens is you begin to, as they say, show me what a man eats, and I'll show you who he is. You are what you eat. You begin to absorb the personality and the characteristics and the attributes of that which you eat. So now we get to animals, do you want to absorb the toxicity of a vulture? Do you want to absorb the toxicity of a pig? Do you want to absorb the toxicity? I'm not going to go any further than that because I know I got animal lovers in my room. The destructive capacities of these creatures who are territorial and who are fleshly, they don't have a spirit. They don't have a neshama. All they have is will, mind, and emotions and body. So they are going to drag you down. Your affection for them, your attraction to them, your interactions with them will all be sources in which you will be losing your holiness energy and the ability to bless other people, and you will instead be focusing on them and what you have to do to deal with them. Now, that's a shocking process, but he wants us to understand not just about animals. Animals are just a picture. Thoughts, anything that you can bring into your being or associate with. So, we're going to get to the realm, and Yeshua is going to expand greatly on this, but the prophets will do it as well. What is unclean? What is tameh? Well, anything you can attach yourself to that is not holy. It is not of the Holy One. Anything you can ingest. And how do you ingest? You ingest with your eyes, what you see, what you choose to look at. Now, there are levels of looking at things. As I drive down the road, I have been trained by my father and the guy who taught me driver's ed to keep a panoramic view where I hopefully be observant of everything in front of my mirror, my windshield. That is panoramic view. Y'all understand panoramic view? You can't control panoramic view. Panoramic view is whatever comes before your windshield. But what you can control is directed view. Directed view, what you choose to look at. You're driving down the road, and that 1965 cherry apple red Mustang, for some of you old folks, is coming right at you. And maybe Suzanne Summers is driving it, I don't know, but something else is going on to get your attention. And all of a sudden, now we've gone from panoramic view to directed view. My football coach used to say, trying to keep our mind focused on football, and knowing that we had cheerleaders, would say to us, guys, the first look is free. Talking about whenever we let our mind drift away to where the cheerleaders were on the sideline, the first look is free, but the next one's going to cost you. Every other one after that's going to cost you. If you fix your eyes on it, and this is that process of turning, what are we allowing ourselves to fix a view on? Fixed view. What is on your computer screen? What's on your television? What's on your cell phone, your smartphone screen? What is it that you're fixating view on? What do you look at? What do you choose to look at? When you actually choose, not just have a panoramic view of things that God has put in front of your face, but now you actually choose to fixate on certain things. That's That's where you're going to get uncleanness. That's one of the places you'll get tuma. Understand? If you don't understand that, you'll just keep looking. You understand what happened to you, why you're so angry because you saw something, or why your appetite went up because you were watching the Food Channel, and it looked so good. That cake they'd made, or that soup they'd made, or whatever looked so good, because you let yourself fixate on a view that was appealing to your flesh and your appetites and your urges. Now, it can go way beyond all that. But your eyes are your first, and your ears, what you will listen to. What do you like to listen to when you get in your car? If you do. If you drive, what do you turn on the radio, or a CD, or MP3? What do you like to listen to as you're driving down the road? Or is it news talk? Is it sports radio? What do you listen to? Is it the Food Channel? What is it that you like to listen to? Because you see, now you have opened a portal. You've opened a portal for the Tameh. Oh, you thought it was just about animals, right? No, it's about more than just creatures that don't part the hoof and chew the cud. It's about everything you allow into your being. What things do you touch? Do you actively engage in? What things do you like to sniff and smell? All your senses, all the places where you can have an input into your spirit and ingest those things are portals of uncleanness. And you have to learn how to recognize them for what they are and deal with them appropriately and see them from the helicopter view down of the holiness of God. And what impact is this going to have upon my relationship with Him, my relationship with my family? What impact is this going to have on my relationship with my created sphere of influence that I'm given to respond over? Will this bring into my life some level of blessing to other people, or will it cause me to become more absorbed with my own self and my own appetites, my own desires, my own likes? What will it do to me? This is the essential message of the Holy One to Aaron. Aaron, all you royal priesthood of God, if you want to elevate, if you're ready to take that next step and go a little higher, then we're going to have to regulate and look carefully at what you let get close to you, who you let get close to you, because people can be Tameh as well. People can be a source of this toxicity that it drains. It's an energy drain from the spiritual realm. People and things and thoughts and ideas and political theories and ideologies and philosophies and science concepts and medical concepts, all these things can be a drain, direct your attention away from what the voice of the Holy One is saying, what the energy of pulsing holiness of God is releasing into your life. All of these things can do that. Are you going to be responsible? Adam, I'm not going to leave you down in this garden you're supposed to tend, which is your sphere of influence, your world, your ecosystem that I've given you charge over. I'm not going to leave you down there, but you're going to have to learn to respond to me when I call you. You have to learn to respond to my guidance, to my general direction, as well as my written instructions. You need to understand not just the instructions, but the why I do what I do, and what are your main obstacles, main challenges that you face. And then he's going to finish the Parsha in that amazing way. If you would stand with me and we'll read from chapter 11. One of the holy things that we are to attach ourselves to and let elevate us are these words. And these are actually quoted words from the Holy One himself. This is not Moshe talking. This is not a written story. This is the actual words the Creator of the universe we're attached to. This is beginning with, it's chapter 11, and it's beginning with verse 44. And we'll say the blessing of the house before we read to honor this beautiful, beautiful thing that he's given to us, this holiness energy. Open our eyes, O Holy One, our God, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth. Do not hide your commandments from us. Our souls cry out for your judgments at all times. saying, how can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your word. Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Amen. Verse 44, the voice of the Holy One is speaking over you, over me, over our progeny, over our seed, over our world. For I am the Holy One, your God. You are therefore to set yourselves apart, consecrate yourselves, and you are to be holiness. Holy. For I am holiness. Holy. Neither are you to defile yourself or corrupt yourself with any creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. For I am the Holy One, who brings you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God. You are therefore to be holiness, as I am holiness. This is the Torah of the animals and of the birds and of every living creature that moves its way in the waters, and every creature that creeps on the earth, to distinguish, to make a separation between that which is unclean to May and that which is clean to Hor, and between also the animal that may be eaten and the animal that may not be eaten. Amen. You may be seated. There is a little secret hidden in the Hebrew. You can actually see it in that English as well. In verse 45, 11:45. It says, for I am the Holy One, your God, who brings you up. Allah in Hebrew. This is not found in some of the other portions. I'm the God who brought you out. God brought you forth. But this is different. This is different. This phraseology, this verb is a different verb. He says, I am the Holy One, your God, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Now, this idea of being brought up, it's found in two other places in the Torah. When he tells us, because he mentioned many times he brought us out of the land of Egypt. But he tells us he brought us forth or up from the land of Egypt he actually tells us in two places, or it's told us in two places, and then there's a place in the Psalms. The Psalm is 81, so if that helps you any to understand what we're going to talk about, if you know Psalm 81, you understand the context of Psalm 81, you will perhaps understand what it means that you've been brought up. You haven't just been brought out, you've been brought up. You're taken to a higher level. You're taken higher on the continuum of holiness. You're taken higher into the realm of interaction with the Creator of the universe. We've been brought up. Are you coming up, or are you just out? Are you just out? Are you just celebrating the fact you're no longer in bondage to Egypt? Or are you coming up? And the second portion is in Deuteronomy chapter 20. And he says, now when you go out to war against your enemies, you are not to fear them. Because I am the Lord who brought you up. You understand this? Maybe Psalm 27 a little better. When he lifted me up, he placed me on a rock high above my enemies. He gives us a perspective, a helicopter view, a helicopter seat above our enemies. This is the idea, all this aspect of being up higher. Now, this is the idea. Are you up, or are you just out? Are we ready to go up higher? Are we ready to ascend? Are we ready to actually take this next step with the Holy One to be His vessels of holiness energy into the world, of blessing into the world? Are we willing to let ourselves interact with the world at the higher level than at the flesh level and the pseudo-intellect level we've been operating at? This is our question for the day. And the Holy One is calling with all of His heart for His people, knowing that you will listen when you're ready. I hope today is your day to be ready. Give us a call, or give us an email, or a note, or a comment on this Facebook Live, or on the YouTube that will follow. Give us a comment and let us know where you are, if you're watching by internet, and where you are and what you're doing and what we can do to help you. Amen. We'll see you next week.